It is a pleasure to finally meet you, and I think this conversation is going to be very interesting. This conversation is also with Juan Alberto Gaviria, who have been the director of the gallery for many years. So welcome, Juan Alberto and Laurie.
Okay. Well, Laurie, great to see you again, and thank you so much for accepting our Colombo Talks to be included in the Colombo Talks program. Okay.
Oh, I'm excited to reconnect.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about your background as an artist.
Yes, when I was 13, my father gave me a beautiful sewing machine, and for a long time, I did a lot of things related to fiber and textile. At relatively the same time, I became really interested in image making with the camera. And I did a combination in my studies of fashion design and fine arts. And then in the fine arts aspect, I really embraced photography, and I started a sweater business when I was, 19 or 20, maybe 20. And during that period of time, which was a 10-year period, I stopped making photographs and doing anything related to my own personal kind of creative work. I thought I could do that, and then I wouldn't have to do commercial photography or commercial artwork. But that business took over my life, and I thought I would do it for 5 years, and next thing I knew it was 10 years. And so then becomes a chapter, which is that I started to work with Roy Lichtenstein. And during that phase of time in his studio, I photographed my own work in response to his work and his way of producing paintings.
Tell us about, your relationship between like your work and the experience of Lichtenstein work. It's a privilege to know that you were so close to a master of the pop art.
Going back to Lichtenstein and the relationship of my sort of visual interest or visual aesthetic sensibilities, Roy's work had a very graphic sense to it. The way he worked with layering of linear and depth of things. And of course, he had a limited color palette that he worked in. And for me, thinking about the limitations that you can impose on yourself, how they really benefit you in a way, or benefit me anyway, when you have guidelines or parameters that you're working within. And I saw his precise palette or choice of colors in his palette as being a strength of something that he could get really comfortable with. And I find that in my own work, that I have a tendency to work within palettes of color that change from time to time, but how it's a grounding sensation to have those parameters. And the other thing with my work evolving, it has become really textural because I became really aware working on a computer like we started to do so much, that I felt a separation from the tactile nature, our fingertips, what things touch, and the play that memory of touch has in how we express ourselves and communicate with one another. So it's been interesting for me. You mentioned I've been doing more three-dimensional work. I've been doing outdoor work, installation work. My biggest challenge in a good way, again, limiting parameters, is how can I make some work that I'm doing that's very intimate, where I'm very quiet and reserved and it's small and it takes a long time, how can I change those ideas into something that engages other people and lets other people in to my experience? And for the last 3 years, I've been doing some outdoor installation work, and that's been my challenge, and it's been very exciting.
Yes. Now, getting into the Colombian chapter, and I really wanted to take the opportunity, to thank you for the fact that you dare to go to all the different, besides the workshops, to all the different sort of like high risk neighborhoods and high schools and of our program, Desde Arte Paz. Believe me, that stay in them. The fact that you went to visit them and the university students.
Well, one thing, and you touched on it, and that is, I remember one of the last schools we went to was probably the scariest neighborhood.
Yeah, the Sierra.
And the woman, I think she was the vice principal of the school. She might have been the principal of the school, I'm not sure. Yeah. She was the most welcoming of all the leaders of all the schools. She made sure we had something to eat, that we had tea, that we were comfortable. And the really amazing thing was that she came to the opening, the reception that you had at the gallery. And she was so thrilled to be a part of that. And I really felt, even though I don't speak Spanish, I felt a wonderful connection. And that felt really nice. On the other hand, working with the college students was very special. I loved being with them. We spent a lot of time in the botanical garden, I believe, and various other places. And they told me that no one ever goes to those gardens unless you're getting your picture taken for your wedding, But I think I might have changed their attitude a little bit. And the really fun thing is that quite a few of them keep in touch with me through Instagram. So, I might not be so much sending them written messages, but we send each other pictures or, comment on each other's pictures. And I like knowing that they're out there, and I do wonder what they've done with their careers, not just, about making photographs, but doing something creative.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to mention that it's interesting how, like for many artists that have been part of our programs, there is still this connection with social media and how important it is to have this media nowadays to have this kind of conversation as well. I mean, as you said, like the tactile connection that you might have with nature or with the work of art. But then we have this also to connect with people and to connect with the voices and the Instagram friends that we all have all around the world. So it's very nice that you are still in touch with the students.
In relation to art as a social transformation, and then we'll touch some other things. The Paris Museum did a program with like women in jail or something like that.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about your experience.
It's a wonderful program. There's a foundation called 1 Hour. They work with helping women when they leave incarceration and get back into the real life. Mm-hmm. And one of the programs that they've been working on is sending artists into the institutions behind bars to work so that people get to use their hands and be creative. And I taught weaving, and I think it was an opening to them emotionally to the outside world. It's a prison that's kind of a temporary facility. They're waiting for their sentencing, and it's a way station to another facility. But the thing is, it's a mixture of people who have done or been accused of all sorts of things. from drug-related offenses, which may or may not involve violence, to, driving while intoxicated. I don't know, the different things, because we didn't talk about that. We talked about our mission at hand in front of us, which was working with color and fiber. And what I did was I took photographs and I printed them and I cut them almost all the way in 1/2-inch strips, but I left them still attached at one end so they could see the image. And I thought, okay, these are people who are inside, have no view of the world. And I made beautiful landscape pictures. And it triggered conversations, they took them apart and then they wove them together differently. And I loved that for a 2-hour period, these women could talk about dreams they had. Like, someday I really want to go to Italy with my daughter, one of them would say.
Yeah.
Or that kind of thing. And so if I could open up someone's consciousness to a dream, that's a good thing.
Tell us a little bit more or just about your residency at the Rauschenberg. How?
Yeah, well, that was really great. I was invited to do a photographic project for the Rauschenberg Foundation when they were first starting their residency program. And during that period of time, I was also encouraged to do my own work. And that became a body of work that was very important to me because the landscape there is so textural and fibrous that it got me working with fiber again. And I started to knit and weave as a result of photographing there. It was outstanding because people came from around the world to work, and everyone's interests or concerns or methods were different. And people were at different phases of their career. And then I had an opportunity to go myself as a resident for 5 weeks. And I got to work in Bob Rauschenberg's darkroom. I really liked that idea. And I made cyanotypes for the first time, and I ended up doing a lot of cyanotypes over the following years.
Now, having you been trained as a fine art, I can see that your awareness of space and then some of the projects, because there was an exhibition which wonderful, because sometimes I am in contact with photographers, and they keep sending me their recent work and stuff like that, but suddenly all this weaving, and it was something that it was sort of like the weaving and the installations. Could you please, like your recent work, especially like in the forest, that you have been working with, like these neat balls of color?
So you may see the opening page on my website is an outdoor circle. And what I did was I took sticks larger than the ones here in my hand.
Yes.
But they're all wrapped with wool. Mm-hmm. And I just brought these out as an example to show you. My idea was to make sort of a colorful tumbleweed, these tumbleweeds that grow in the desert, and to make a big circle in the garden or the woods at the Watermill Center, which is another residency and art foundation. And what I did was I took a lot of wool that I have had in storage from my end of sweater business in 1990. And I was always going to make a beautiful rug or something out of this wool. And I just got this idea to wrap the sticks with it. And I contacted a friend who teaches young children in school in art. and she did it with her class as a project. And another woman who teaches like an after school program with kids, she did it with her kids. And then we had 2 community days where 150 people or so would come through the Watermill Center, and I would have them also work on it. And it became this very wonderful experience for everybody, I think. For one, it working with something like winding wool around a stick. One, it's forcing people, not that you have to force people, but it's giving them the opportunity to actually feel something from nature. Some people don't touch nature unless you ask them to.
Yes.
And that whole experience of what goes on in your palm when you touch. But the other thing is you didn't need to know any stitches. You didn't need to count or measure, you know, it was just really a sensual aesthetic experience. And lots of people have never done anything creative in their life. Were so excited to participate. And people were doing it as families, like grandparents down to 3-year-olds together, you know, and that was really fun. So that was one thing. And before that, I did another project, which started, I was at a residency in Norway on the edge of a fjord, and I started collecting stones every day from the water's edge. But I also, during that period of time, was doing all sorts of research about the history of knitwear and knitting and wool production in that region. In the Nordic countries, there's a really big tradition of knitting, as well as in Scotland, which is just across the water from there. And so I had been collecting from various small wool producers material. And one day I just started covering the rocks, and it became this ongoing project where I've been knitting covers for rocks. And you'll see those also, I think, on my website. If not, I'll forward you some pictures. But that's been another experience of people having a play with mass and weight. I mean, when you look at something knitted, I don't know what it looks like reproduced, but in real life, it looks like it should be fuzzy and light. But when you pick it up, it's heavy like a rock, you know? And so it has this contrast in your head of what it is. Anyway, it's been a joyful thing, you know? People really respond to it.
Well, but I think that it's also related to our recent call and of what artists sometimes in the 90s were doing about, like, you know, knitting those knitting rocks. It's like a call for compassion for the earth, you know. And I think that it's I can see the reaction of the public and the participants. Now, have you were doing some paperwork or some like prints?
Oh, I was printing. I've been printing on linen.
Yes.
Linen fabric, and then going back in and embroidering.
Oh.
That's the series is called Bark Cloth. I love doing it, so I continue to do it.
You know, I must say that after being at the Colombo with so many decades, one of the high moments of my career was with Zoom Lab, and the fact that you accepted our invitation, and in 2 weeks, I don't know how we framed like 150 works, you know, the results, like 2 days framing the results of it, plus your individual exhibition, and then the visit to all these kids that it was a wonderful experience, and it's been one of the interest why we got this this financial assistance from the American embassy to try to see how art can help to transform society, as you have been talking. So I hope that after post-COVID, you can continue with working with these women that have been incarcerated, but at the same time, to continue on your poetic approach to our planet. We need people like you, and artists like you, talking about a compassionate attitude towards the earth.
Yeah, compassion is such a wonderful concept. I was thinking that when you were teaching how to weave or how to make this spiral movement into the branch of the tree, that's like a meditation, and it's a notion of the time of nature, how it builds a life itself. You are teaching to contemplate, which is absolutely a thing that we need nowadays.
Yeah, we need permission to take time and give things space. And working with our hand is another connection between our mind and our heart, I think,
And
Absolutely.
the psychological healing that it does. And then they start jumping ideas about, their past, their anguish and stuff like that. So we encourage you to continue. We thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I wish I was closer, and I would love to do a workshop with you, because I think it's there's something about when people are working with their hand, but making something in a community kind of atmosphere, whether it's around a table or in a room, lets people open up and start talking about just real things rather than like cocktail conversation, if you know what I mean. It's like you don't worry about what you look like or what you're wearing. You're just sharing experiences. It's really nice. Anyway, well, thank you. It's really been a pleasure to reconnect today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.